If you are wondering, how can I accept money in my business but avoid paying processing fees, then this episode is for you. I'm diving into the question of payment processors. Which one should I use? Is there one that won't give me fees? Short answer, there's not a good one that's not going to give you fees. So talking about that, this is kind of a soapbox of mine. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about this in other episodes. I think it's such an important thing that I really want new business owners to hear. So that's why I'm giving it its own episode in this fun little bonus thing here. And I'm expanding on this topic. So if you're new to your business, if you're struggling with how to accept payments, then this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth McCravey, and you're listening to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Each week, I'll bring you workshop-style trainings that teach you how to stand out online, design success from the inside out, and create a breakthrough business. It's time to turn viewers into raving fans and design the business and life of your dreams. I'm so excited you're here. Welcome to a bonus episode of the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. So if you've heard episode 25 of this podcast, it was called something to the extent of 8 ways to stop treating your business like a hobby. I talk about this point in one of those 8 ways. So if you're like, oh, this sounds familiar, that is why. But I wanted to expand on this topic and give it its own episode here because I think this is so important. It often doesn't get talked about, and I see this question a lot, and it's something I wish someone would have told me when I was new in my business. So that's why I'm telling it to you. If you're listening to this and you're like, this isn't me right now, but I have this friend who just started their business, please share this with them. You can just click inside of the podcast app, wherever you're listening. There's an icon where you can share it to someone and send this to them, in a text message, or share it on your social media, email it to them. I don't know, but share it with the girl or the guy who needs it. Okay. So I often see in Facebook groups, you probably do too, this question of, does anyone have any good recommendation for how to get around not paying fees for receiving money? I know that's the cost of doing business and is more convenient for clients, but I'm just wondering, thanks. So that actually is a word for word question I saw in a Facebook group that prompted me to come up with this thing. I was like, I got to share this originally when I shared this on the podcast. So that's a common question. And oftentimes new business owners, they aim to only accept payments from Venmo or Cash App or something of that nature. And they use those, and this might be you too, because they can typically avoid the around 3% processing fees that payment processors are going to have. And maybe that's you right now. If it is you, do not hide. It is okay. I'm not here to be mean. I'm here to help. And this is a mistake I made myself too. So I'm speaking from experience as we talk through this. So what I'm talking about, if you need a little bit more explanation, when you allow people to pay you online through their payment choice, the payment processor takes a very minimal percentage of the total. And that fee, a transaction fee is what's typically called, happens basically with any normal online payment. So with a debit card, credit card, even bank payments, PayPal, all of it, they're taking a transaction fee. So for example, if you do online shopping, you aren't seeing it happen because the company is paying the fee. But say you bought some shirt for $30, the company is paying probably around a 2 to 3% fee to accept that money that you used your debit card or credit card or however to pay for. So that's how the fees work. And so some business owners, they see that fee and they think, oh, how can I avoid that transaction fee? And so here's the thing, payment processing companies, that might not even be the best name for them, but that's why I'm calling them here. I'm talking about things like Stripe, PayPal, the business version of PayPal, all of those kinds of things. They are just like you. And you might think, no, they're not. They're businesses. And in order to operate, they have to make money. And those platforms are typically free to use. When you are accepting payments on Stripe, you're not paying a monthly fee to Stripe to have that account open. Same with Square. Like you're not paying them to like exist with your account. And so instead of charging you a monthly flat fee for using their service, they take a small percentage of what you earn. So it's basically like the more money you're making on their platform, the more you're going to pay for using it because they're doing more work on their end. So instead of whining about the percentage, I want to encourage you to be a business owner and to choose pricing for what you're selling to where you're not hurt by the fees, to where you're just like, this is the cost of doing business. Just like when we pay our taxes, which I know sucks a lot of the time. We don't like doing that. It's the cost of doing business. And so I want to tell a story. I have been there. When I was a new business owner, I exclusively, basically, except for a couple of people, I mostly was only taking payments through Venmo and Cash App. And, those are applications you can have on your phone. That are for accepting payments between friends. That's how they started. It was the concept of like, we're all eating in a restaurant and we need to split the bill. So one person pays for the bill and then we all Venmo them, that sort of thing. And so that's how I was accepting payments. And it really wasn't cool of me. And it cost me more time. When I was newer in my business, I was earning less money. And I was actually looking through it this morning. A lot of what I was saving was like $5, $10 here and there, or even less than that per transaction, and it wasn't worth the hassle. And I want you guys, just so you can hear, because you might be thinking like, well, Venmo doesn't care, Cash App doesn't care, it's fine, that's what they do. I want to read you from like their website of what they say about this. So on Venmo, they have a help doc page that literally says, the title is, "Can I use Venmo to buy or sell merchandise, goods, or services?" Okay, so here's what Venmo says. I cut out some parts that were explaining it more, but this is the multiple sections of this whole article. So it says, Venmo is designed for payments between friends and people who know and trust one another. Venmo may not otherwise be used to receive business, commercial, or merchant transactions, meaning you cannot use Venmo to accept payment from or send payment to another user for a good or service. If you send a Venmo payment to someone for a good or service, you could lose your money without ever getting what you paid for. If you accept a Venmo payment from someone for a good or service and we later review that payment, we may reverse the payment, meaning you could lose both the payment and the items sold. This review process may not occur until after you have attempted to transfer the funds out of Venmo. Thank you for your cooperation. So you guys, Venmo is saying they will like possibly not give you the money if you do use it that way. And they're also very clearly saying that like this is not supposed to be used for business stuff. They made this app to be, as they said it, between friends. So that's what Venmo says about it. And then Cash App is another one. It's actually owned by Square, which Square is one of the huge like payment processors out there. And they're a little different. They're weird out there. They are doing like Bitcoin, investing, all kinds of stuff too. And they actually have a business side of things, but you have to like be a business account on Cash App in order to like accept the business payment. So if you're using a personal account, they will kick you off, but then they have the business account option that takes 2.75% of the transaction. And there's a lot of limitations though with the business side of things. Like I saw some stuff about only being able to accept up to $1,000 a month and things like that. I don't really know. It was a little confusing. So you can research that yourself, but that's not the point. I'm not trying to help you find something that can't, that isn't going to take fees. I'm actually trying to tell you why you should not try to do that. So here are 4 quick reasons why you shouldn't be using Venmo or Cash App to accept your payments. I'm going to kind of tell you from my personal story. So since I wasn't using a legit payment platform, when I first started my business, I was creating every invoice in Adobe Illustrator from a template I made and then just saving each individual invoice to my computer. And it was really not efficient for creating invoices. It was really bad for creating due dates. I had a lot of retainer clients. So I'm sending these every month on like different dates and like had to like reinvent the wheel every time using this template. And it was really inefficient and complicated for me. And I actually had some times where I like forgot to send someone an invoice because I didn't have any system for it. And I'm like, oh, got to figure that out. That would be the first reason is like when you're using something like that, you probably are like creating your own invoice every time. So that's why it's a bad reason. Like you should not have to be doing that. I'm going to tell you some other options in a moment. Second reason, My clients probably hated it, and yours probably do too, because it's less convenient and it's usually costing your client potential rewards from their credit card company. It's robbing them of being able to like easily track their payments and all of that kind of stuff. So for example, like now in my business, when I've paid contractors or other people for business services via Venmo, it's weird. For Venmo, it has to come out of my personal checking account, not my business checking account. I keep those two things separate, which is very important. That is a whole nother conversation, but your business and personal finances should be separate. But Venmo only allows one like bank account if they're in the same bank, which might sound confusing, but both of my personal bank accounts and my business accounts, they're both from the same like financial institution. So then Venmo is seeing that as like the same account. So then like if I'm paying someone on Venmo, like let's say I'm paying someone $1,000 on Venmo, I have to go find that Venmo cost and transfer money from my business account to my personal finances to cover the cost. And then I have to remember in QuickBooks, like first of all, to categorize like that transfer out of my business account to my personal account as a contractor payment instead of just like a transfer or whatever QuickBooks is going to try to call it. So it's a lot more challenging and kind of confusing and inconvenient. So just know like, you probably can get away with it for a while, but your clients probably aren't happy and you're not really showing them that you're like, you're really running your business professionally when you're like being like, hey, just Venmo me. So that's my thought on that one. And then the third reason, you're making your clients miss out on the convenience of paying how they want to, which a payment platform is going to provide. So I personally am really big on using credit cards in my business to put all my expenses on. And then I pay it off always at the end of the month. I make a point to never like carry a balance, which I have accidentally done a couple times. And those fees for that, the interest fees are not fun. So I always try to pay it off and never carry a balance. But when I do get to put expenses, like a contractor payment or, you're outsourcing something, you pay someone for a website, something like that. When you get to put stuff like that on a credit card, you're going to get rewards points, which equals saving on travel or cash back or whatever it is, depending on what the card is. And so for me, it's been funny. I've had multiple times where I've gotten excited about a big expense in my business because of this, because I'm like, ooh, I am paying this person a lot and I'm really excited about what they're going to give me. And I'm also excited because I'm going to get like these credit card rewards when I do this big transaction, because I'm going to hit like whatever goal the credit card tells me to get like the next reward. Like for example, one of my credit cards for my business that I absolutely love, I will link to it in the show notes. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but when you first join, if you spend a certain amount of money in the first 3 months, they give you $500, like as just like a credit to spend on whatever you want. And so I actually had a big business expense that month that helped me get to the total spending faster. And then I got that $500 and I bought an iPad and some other things. And it was like, yes, like the spending moved me towards something. So like paying that big business expense got me $500 back. So just know that like people are thinking that way who are into using credit cards to their advantage. And so when you don't let people use credit cards, you're making them miss out on this. And they might request like, hey, can I pay you with a credit card? Okay. And then the fourth reason, you guys, this is the biggest one, but actually not the biggest one. The biggest one is upset clients, but this is a really important one. You might get penalized for it. Like I said, when I was reading over what Venmo says about this, for me, when I was early in my business, I got kicked off of Cash App, which they were a bit different than. They didn't even have the option to be a business account at the time, but I got kicked off of there. And then Venmo told me a warning of you got to stop accepting business payments. And so the companies, similar to what Venmo says, if they notice when you're transferring it to your bank account that it was a business payment or appears to be, they're not going to let you do it. And so the companies realized I was using it for business. They said, nope, not happening anymore. It's against their terms and conditions because when it's a business expense, you should have to pay for processing. This company should not be picking it up. They're trying to pick up friend expenses. And so they don't have a processing fee, but when you're saying, I'm a business, let me not pay that fee, they're going to kick you off. So do not risk getting kicked off of those platforms. It's not fun. It created a lot of headaches for me when it happened, but I was happy because that moment of getting kicked off kicked me into gear to get stuff set up right for me. And it's amazing because it saved me so much time once I quit doing it that way. Creating the Adobe Illustrator invoice every couple days, it felt like, when I was like having so many retainer clients. It's a lot. So here's what I want you to do instead is to use a payment processor and invoicing system. And you might be thinking, well, Elizabeth, what payment processor should I use? And I want to say first, a payment platform. Again, I'm not sure that I'm using the right word for that, but like a payment processor, payment platform, talking things like Stripe, and then an invoicing company are different things. So you could use something like Dubsado, for example, as your invoicing company, and then accept payments through a platform like Stripe or Square or PayPal. But Dubsado is the invoicing system. The payment processor would be like, Stripe. And that's actually how I do it for my one-on-one clients. I use Dubsado, and then I use Stripe and PayPal. So here are the invoicing systems I'd recommend, though. I'm going to give you some options here. So if you want something easy and free, I recommend Wave Apps. It's just WAVE apps.com. And Wave is an invoicing system. They do other stuff as well, but you can create and send invoices from Wave and send automated reminders and things like that. And the invoicing side of it's free. That's why I say it's a free platform. But like everything else, the payment processing is not, which remember, you're okay with now because you're not trying to like get that thing for free. You're going to be an actual like CEO of your business and not treating it like a hobby. So the invoicing is free, but the payment processing is not. So I actually started out with Wave, and I still love it. I think it's amazing. It's a great, fast thing to use just to accept a quick payment. But if you want a system that's more robust in the sense of like, it does a lot more than invoicing in the sense of like managing your business, I would recommend Dubsado. That's Dubsado. It's much more than invoicing. It does like contracts, questionnaires, emailing, calendar management, all kinds of stuff. It's a CRM for your business. So it's different than Wave in that sense. And if you're like, oh, that sounds fun, go to elizabethmccravy.com/Dubsado. I'll link that in the show notes. And you can get some info on it. You can start a free trial, and then you can use the code Elizabeth30 to get 30% off your first month or year of Dubsado. And on episode 18 of this podcast, Dubsado sponsored it, and I talk about Dubsado a lot on there. So those are the two I'd recommend, like first and foremost. And I really like both of them. I used Wave, like I said, when I was new, and then I switched over to Dubsado when I wanted more features. And I think both are great depending on your needs, depending on how much like one-on-one work you're doing, all that kind of stuff. Another option I want to throw in here is QuickBooks. QuickBooks, that's what you're probably using for your bookkeeping possibly, and you can also accept payments on there. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. And if you're listening and you're thinking, Elizabeth, what if I still really need to avoid payment processing fees? Here's my advice. Switch to one of these platforms I'm recommending. Be a professional business owner. You will save time and you will create a better experience for your customers. They will thank you. You will look more professional overall. And then if you're still like, but what about that really big payment or something like that? Here's what I advise you. You could consider asking your clients to pay through a check, digital or mail. Most payment processors for digital checks, they charge a flat $5 versus the percentage. That is how Stripe is. I think it's $5 for like all checks. And then you could tell them why you're asking, like that it saves you, hundreds in fees. Like I totally get it. If someone's paying you $8,000 for something, that fee is going to feel more significant. And because of that reason, I actually used to request this. I had a note on my invoices that asked clients that if they were to choose bank so that we could have a lower fee. And then the bank, was only taking like $5, which was awesome. And that's why I requested it, but I've since stopped. Basically, when I got to a point in my business where I was spending more money, I realized I don't necessarily want to be asked that because I really, again, want those credit card rewards. So I don't ask that anymore. But whenever a client does pay with a check, I'm always like, I so appreciate that. And I will literally thank them because with a big project, it really does save hundreds of dollars. But again, I've decided not to push that. But if that is something you're feeling, you could consider putting a nice note on your invoice that's asking them to pay with a check. I would suggest don't ask people to mail you checks. It takes so much longer. Most companies aren't going to want to do that. But with these payment platforms, I know Dubsato's this way, people can input bank info. And it's like a digital check. Okay, the other tip I want to give you, factor the fees into the cost of whatever it is you're selling. You need to you're showing the client a number, you see a different number because you see the fees subtracted out. So for example, if you guys look at my website template shop, you see a cost for each template. You see one number. I see a different number because I see the fee on every transaction. So I'm not taking home the total. I'm actually also have a lot of other expenses that relate to the templates that I factor out of the cost of each one. So I'm seeing a different number. And because of that, I'm not upset by the processing fees. And actually with something like my website template, I'm not ever accepting bank payments. I'm only accepting credit card, debit card, and PayPal, which means I always have a fee. So I factor that into the cost. I'm okay with it. And I know that that's the cost of doing business. So whenever you're pricing something, just think about that. Think about, the number and then subtract, say $10. If if it's a $300 item, something like that, and know it that way. And I just want to encourage you that you'll set your business up to succeed more in the long run if you go ahead and start being more professional with your payments and invoicing now. You're going to eventually anyway. I hope that for you because if you do, if this business things works that you've started that you're so excited about, you're going to keep going and you're going to scale and you're going to need to switch up the way you're accepting payments if it's on Venmo or something right now. So I know early on avoiding the $10 fee can feel wow, that's so huge. Yay. I don't want to pay the $10. And I have been there. I've been that person who's I don't want to pay the $15 fee or whatever. But trust me, once you start accepting the fees for what they are as the cost of doing business, it's such a good mindset shift that is going to put you more into I'm a CEO of this. I'm taking my business seriously. I'm scaling this thing versus approaching it oh, this is kind of my hobby. I'm a little freelancer, that kind of vibe. So it's a different mindset and you'll feel better because of that. And your clients are really going to appreciate that. And to close, I want to tell you one piece of advice I've seen people suggest in Facebook groups when going back to what I originally read of that comment, asking for advice. I've seen people suggest charging customers extra if they want to use a credit card or debit card. And I think that's so unprofessional. So please don't do that. You should let your clients pay however they want to. If anything, I would actually suggest giving them a discount if they pay with a bank payment. So saying pay however you want, we'll give you $50 off if you pay with a bank, because then you're only having a $5 expense there for the processing. But please do not charge people extra. That is such a like bait and switch in my mind. If I was working with someone and then they were like, you can pay with a credit card, but it's extra, like don't do that. Let people pay however they want. And I also want to point out, because I think this is something good to note when you think about fees, you can actually write the fees off on your taxes. They are tax deductible. You can categorize them as credit card processing fees, transaction fees. I forget what it's called, something like that. And that helps with the tax side of things. So that is something that you should be tracking in your business, and you can consult like an accountant or bookkeeper for help with that. So you guys, that is it for this little bonus episode about why you should stop using Venmo and Cash App and all of that to avoid fees when accepting money in your business. I hope if you're someone who's currently using those, that you know I'm saying this with love and hoping that this is something that will help you grow your business long term and will set you up to really run like a professional and profitable business. So I'm really excited for those of you who are going to switch to something new after hearing this. Again, if you have like a friend in business or a Facebook group you're in where you're like, someone needs to hear this, please share that with them. And let's spread the word of this information, because again, this is something that when I was starting my business, I wish people were telling me, because if I were to have posted that question in a Facebook group, I feel like people would have said stuff like just, charge them extra for using a credit card or something like that. But the truth is, this is the cost of having a business, and it's such a worthy cost to create a great customer experience. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll be back next time with a regularly scheduled episode. Bye, you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, friend. I appreciate you being here. Hey, I want to tell you, if you've enjoyed this episode, then I really want to encourage you to check out my website, where you'll find tons of resources to help you grow a profitable and sustainable business. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find a lot of great things, some of which I want to tell you about right now. So you'll find free workbooks to help you do things like identify your ideal client, discover what pain points you solve for your customers, or even a guide to help you plan out your Instagram feed. You'll also find my top business tools. Like, yes, I literally list out all the major tools I use in my business on my website, and I have a bunch of special discounts and offer for you guys to snag and try out these products and services. You'll also find my website template shop that helps you DIY your way to a strategic website for your business. These website templates are easy to use, they're built on the Showit platform, and they are gorgeously designed. I have a feeling you'll absolutely love them. So to access the tools and free downloads, go to elizabethmccravey.com/tools. And to access the amazing website templates so you can get started with a new website today, go to elizabethmccravey.com/shop. I hope you have so much fun exploring over there. There's so much great stuff for you on my website. And you guys, don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. And leaving a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening, or even just sharing it with a friend, is a great way to support the show. Thanks so much for being here. Bye, you guys.